Assalamu alaikum, my dear students, and a very good morning to you, or a very good afternoon to you, or if you are watching it in the evening, a very good evening to you all. My dear students, here we are for the lesson number 1 of the week number 3. Today's topic would be a poem. The title of the poem is Stopping by the Words on a Snowy Evening. My dear students, this poem has a significant value. If we can talk about in terms of board examination, and it has also has a significant value in terms of your practical life. To understand this poem, I have set four objectives. My student, I would like to share with you. The first one would be to comprehend the ideas and events of the poem. In this particular lesson, we're going to comprehend, we're going to understand the poem with its ideas being mentioned in the poem, and we are also going to critically evaluate the poem. By critical evaluation, I means what are the meanings of the poem and how can they be related to the practical life. So the second and the third one, the third objective are related to each other. The fourth objective of the lesson would be to identify the use of figurative language in the poem. So this would be our final objective of the lesson, to figure out the figurative language, figure of speech used in the poem. So to start with the understanding of the poet, I would like to talk about the poet Robert Lee Frost. He was an American poet, born in 1874 and died in 1963. He was the poet whose poetry were famous outside his native land, that is Britain, instead of in America. He was an American citizen, but his poetry were famous in Britain before it were famous in the America itself. If we talk about its key themes, what he wrote about, he always talk about rural life. He symbolizes rural life with truth. He depicts the benefits of rural life, and he was the only poet who got 4 prizes of poetry, and the name of those prizes would be Pulitzer prizes for poetry. So he got 4 times award for poetry. I mean, the Pulitzer prizes for poetry were given to those and are given to those who wrote exceptional literature. By literature, I mean essays, novels, dramas, and poems, famous poems. So, my dear students, we have understand who was and we have talked about who was the poet of the poem and how famous was he. So, so now we can move forward to the understanding of the poems. To start with the poem, my dear student, the writer says, "Whose words these are, I think I know." So in the first line, he talks about the speaker of the poem and the ownership of the forest. Words. His house is in the village though. So the speaker was guessing the owner of the village maybe, the owner of the words may be in the village. I mean, he was guessing out. He will not see me stopping here to watch his words fill up with snow. So he was claiming, the speaker was claiming that he was the luckiest one to see the beauty of the place. There were words that were filled up with snow, but the owner of these words was unlucky because he was not there to see the to see the speaker and the beautiful scene of the poem, of the place. So in the first stanza, the poet talks about 2 main aspects. The setting of the poem. Setting, by setting means where was the speaker, what kind of place in which the actual poem, the actual event was happened. So by these words, house, village, words, and snow, we can understand the setting of the poem. So you need to imagine there is a forest, you are there, you yourself is there. I mean, there was a forest and you are standing there. There was a snow as well, and there was a village far away, and you are there in the evening. So this is the setting the poet has mentioned in the first stanza. I have talked about visual imagery in the first stanza. What is visual imagery? My dear students, as a human being, it has been given to us imagination. The word imagination. We can imagine our previous happenings. For example, if I can give the example of Champions Trophy final match. Many of our students have watched the final between India and Pakistan in 2017, and Pakistan won it easily. So we can go back to that match. As a student, as a teacher, I can go back to that scene and I can imagine what was going on at that time. So that is imagery. We can imagine the visuals of the past. So through these words, the writer actually asking you to imagine the scene of the poem. I mean the place of the poem. So in the first stanza, the writer talks about the setting of the poem. If we can move forward to stanza number 2, my little horse must think it's queer. So the speaker was having a horse, and the horse was thinking. Queer means strange. So the horse was thinking it in a strange manner to stop without a farmhouse near. The horse was thinking that why we stop here? Why did we stop here? Because there's no farmhouse near. So he was actually right. The horse was right. That why my honor stopped me to watch this, and because there is no farmhouse near, and why we are here. Between the woods and frozen lake. Another thing has been mentioned in the poem Frozen Lake. So there was a forest. The forests were covered with snow, and the speaker was there with his horse, and there is a frozen lake beside it. So this is the complete picture of the poem where the poem was happening. The darkest evening of the year. Another aspect of the setting is mentioned over here. The darkest evening of the year. In that year, the darkest evening, and a frozen lake, a forest, which were covered with snow. So that was the whole scene of the poem. I can tell you again what was the setting of the poem. If we can talk about in terms of words, you are standing in the center of a forest, and the forest were covered with the snow. There was a frozen lake beside it, and it was darkest evening of the year. So this is the whole scene of the poem. Again, in the second stanza, he talks about setting the poem and the visual imagery. If we can talk about the third stanza, he gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The horse gives his harness. Harness means control. Bells a shake. So he indicates and he hints at his owner to ask if there is some mistakes. Because there was no farmhouse nearby, the horse was anxious to know why we are here. So that is why he asked through a bell, through a declaration of bell, that are we doing a mistake, are we committing a mistake, or it's a good thing. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. So he again talks about the setting of the poem. The sounds were only two: easy wind and downy flake. Easy wind means the sound of the wind, and downy flake. Downy means soft, and flake means the shape of the snow. You can say a loose mass of snow, a loose type of snow that falls in cold areas. So there was two types of sound. Of one is all about the sound of wind, and the other one of the snow. So in the first two lines of stanza number 3, he talks about a mistake. If there is a mistake by the owner, and this was indicated by the horse of the honor. And in this last two verses of stanza number 3 talks about the setting of the poem again. So in the third stanza, the poet talks about the setting of the poem and the realization. Realization means if there is a mistake, to stand in a isolate, or you can say lonely forest, without any farmhouse nearby. So there are two most important points to be noted in this stanza number 3. If we can move forward to stanza number 3, so far in the last 3 stanzas we talk about the setting of the poem. Now you can imagine, I would like to say it again, that you need to imagine that there was a forest and you were there as a speaker. I mean, you can imagine you are there and there is a forest where you are, and that forest is covered with the snow. There was a frozen lake, and there was a sound of wind, and there was a sound of snow falling. So this was the setting of the poem. In the first stanza, the poet talks about the setting of the poem. Now in the last stanza, as we have seen in Daffodils, in the first 3 stanzas he talks about the setting of the poem, and in the last stanza he talks about the actual meaning of the poem, I mean the crux of the poem. So similarly in the poem Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, in the fourth stanza the poet describes the meaning, the message of the poem in stanza number 4. So he says, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep. Now, the woods are lovely, dark and deep. He was saying that although the scene was beautiful, the scene of forest, snow, a frozen lake, it was beautiful for the speaker, but I have promises to keep. But there is a practical life, and there must be a balance between practical life and a world of imagination. The world of imagination is very inviting, but you need to move on in your practical life. For example, I would like to quote an example over here. For example, a student, a male or a female student, just before the exam can go into imagination and thinks about 1000 or 1050 marks in board examination. So that is his or her imagination. He could not be attached with this imagination for so long. He needs to, or she needs to get rid of the imagination and can go to the practical work, and through practical work he can get what he imagines, what he or she imagines. So if you stuck in your imagination, you cannot win big miracles in your life. So this is the message of the first 2 verses of the stanza number 2. And then, and a miles to go before I sleep, and a miles to go before I sleep. He repeats the same verse in 2 lines, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep, because he wants to give attention and importance to this line, significance to this line. Before sleep, before going to another world, we can say, if we talk about Islam, before going to the graves, because sleep symbolizes with death, and miles to go, it is symbolizing that we have to do a lot of work, not in terms of our religious aspects, but also in terms of our practical gains. So he has to do many things before he gets the final breath of his life. So that is why he gives importance to this idea. Before sleep, before dying into imagination, there is a dire need to work and work. So that is why it is twice mentioned in the last 2 verses of the whole poem and stanza number 4. So if we talk about the stanza number 4 as a whole, what it has to offer, it has a message of the poem. The stanza has a message of the poem. What type of message? The message is you should keep a balance between the world of imagination and real world. Now, what is the world of imagination and real world? You should not fall into your dreams only. You have to work for them to achieve it. So this is the message of the poem, that you need to make a balance between the world of imagination and the real world. My dear students, imagination is also necessary, because big thinkers get big things in life. So if you cannot imagine, you cannot get, and you cannot go for hard hurdles in your life. So imagination is necessary and real world application is necessary, but must be a balance between both of them, imagination and real world. And the next one, what is a possible message? If we can sum it up, the whole poem into 2 words. The one is wishes and obligations. You cannot stay into your wishes. You have to get it. You have to do moral or social obligations to get those wishes. For example, as a student, you have set many goals. Someone may want to become a doctor, someone may go to army, someone may want to become a NASA engineer, software engineer, electronic engineer. That is your wish. Now, to fulfill and to get that wish is to work. Obligation, necessary work, practical life. To get your wish, you have to work hard in life. That is moral obligation, that is social obligation, that is practical obligations. So if you have wishes in your life, and before it dies, you have to work hard to achieve all these wishes. So my dear students, this is the whole message of the poem. There was a beautiful setting, and in that beautiful setting, the writer gives you a complete or a wonderful message. And what is the message? There must be a balance between your imagination and how you can go to get it through your practical work. So this is the whole poem circles around. I hope the events and the ideas discussed in the poem is clear to you right now over here. If we can talk about what is this poem all about, we have already talked about there is a world of imaginations. You have thoughts, and there is a real life obligation work. So there must be thinking behind it. If you do not have big goals, you will be a small person, since you are ashraful makhlukat and you are here to get something big in life. So if you think big, for thinking big, there must be a healthy brain, and for a healthy brain, there must be a work. So this goes side by side, but there must be a balance. You should not die in your imagination. You should work hard to get your imagination. So this is the message. This is the poem talks about all. So this is the central idea of the poem. This is the key theme of the poem. This is critical appreciation of the poem. What is that? The world of imagination. There's a world of imagination, and there's a real life world obligations. You have to keep the balance. So this is the poem talks about. If we can move forward, the figures of speech, my dear students, there are 3 figure of speech mentioned in your screen right now. Alliteration, watch his words, sounds sweep his horse. These 3 alliteration are being used in the poem. Watch his word, over here, watch his words, sound sweep, it could be like over here, sounds the sweep, and his house is over here, his house. So these 3 alliterations have been used in the poem. And there's a personification as well. Personification can be termed as actions committed by non-living things. And what kind of actions? Humanistic actions. If a non-living thing commits a humanistic action, it is called personification. But he gives his harness bells a shake. He gives. So he symbolizes with a horse. Horse, although it is an animal, but he is not a human. So he cannot commit, or he cannot do a humanistic thing. So that is why I mentioned over here, this is a mild personification. Even if animal does a humanistic characteristic, it is called personification, but it will be called as a mild personification. And there are imagery, sense and visual. Sensual imagery have been used and visual imagery has been used. I have told you what is visual imagery. If I speak in front of you the word words, village, house, frozen, lake, farmhouse, darkest, evening, wind, downy flake. So you can imagine all the words, all the ideas behind it. For example, if I speak words, you need to close your eyes and think about the words. Now, if you close your eyes, you will immediately can visualize the words in your brain. And village as well. What kind of village comes to your mind? It can be very situation to situation, and you can imagine horse, you can imagine house as well. So this is called imagination, and it terms as imagery. It could be of several types. So these are used in the poem as well. If we can move forward, there is another figure of speech being mentioned in the poem, rhyming words. If we talk about in terms of first stanza, first, third and fourth verse of the first stanza are rhyming words, are rhymings to each other. No, though and snow. What we need to look at in the rhyming words is this last sound of the verse. If you can go back to the stanza number 1, I know, though, hair, and snow. So you have to see the last word of the words in terms of getting the rhyming words. So last word of this verse, last word of second verse, and third and fourth as well. So no, though, snow. So these three words, no, though and snow, are rhyming words, and here is not a rhyming word. So in the first stanza, the three words are rhymings. Similarly, in the second stanza, queer, near and ear are rhyming words. In third stanza, shake, mistake and flake are rhyming words. In the fourth stanza, deep, keep and sleep, they are rhyming words. So if we talk about in terms of board examination, this question appears in the exam. Since you know, there is a comprehension question of 6 marks that comes from the poem. He gives you a stanza, the examiner gives you a stanza and asks you some comprehension questions, 3 questions, and each has 2 marks. One question could be or would be, write the rhymings word of the stanza. So if he gives you the first stanza, you have to write these 3 words as the rhyming words. If he gives you the second stanza, you have to mention these 3 words for the second stanza as rhyming words. So at the end of the lesson, I would like to recap and to tell you what is possibly coming for the next lesson. So in the recap, we talk about who writes this poem and what this poem offers to you. There is a big message that you should not fall, you should not die in your imagination. You have to work hard to get your goals in your life. And why? Since you are growing up, your brains are fresh, you need to get positive things in your brain. So this is the reason why this poem is been written by the poet Robert Frost. It has a big message of making a balance between world of imagination, that you should think something big in life, and for that you should not die in your imagination. You have to work hard to achieve your wishes in your life. My dear students, in upcoming lesson, the lesson number 2 for of week number 3, we are going to talk about comprehension questions. Possible questions can made in the lesson. We are going to talk about its possible answers. We will paraphrase all the stanzas, and the main concern of the lesson number 2 would be to solve the exercise of lesson number 8, that is stopping by words on a snowy evening. My dear students, I hope everything is clear to you. If there are certain questions, I would suggest you to go back to the video and understand the key aspect of the poem. Since this is a video lesson, you can play it, replay it twice, it's up to you to understand the poem. Since you have 2 poems in your syllabus, the first one is Daffodils and the second one is Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. These 2 poems are important in terms of your board examination as well. 9 marks question would be appeared from both of them. I will discuss in the next lesson how it could be appeared in the board examination in the previous board examination. So at the end, I would like to say you goodbye, and wish you luck in your life.